There's been an update to the whole Mediavine, destroys basically 500 sites by demonetizing them on the same day drama. Mediavine has actually sent out an email, but they've only sent it out to people who are still on Mediavine. Someone actually forwarded me a copy of that, so we're going to look at that. Mediavine has also created a form for people to basically tattletale on sites that they suspect use AI. I've also got some more information that I want to share with you with what's going on right now. So let's just dive right in. We're going to start right now with this email that went out to, like I said, everyone who's still on Mediavine as well as Mediavine Journey. So the subject line of this email, which I can't show you because I don't want to reveal the email address of the person who sent it to me. The subject is Update on AI and Our Commitment to Original Content. Like I said, this only went out as an email. They've not posted it anywhere publicly, which I find is very interesting because, they're taking this hard stance. They should want people to know, so why are they hiding it? But for whatever reason, they have decided to not make this publicly available. So it starts out basically with them apologizing. I say them, it's really the CEO, some guy, I think his name's Eric something. We'll get to that when we get to the bottom here. So apologizing for lower quality sites getting in the network, blah, blah, blah. They've heard from people who are upset about it. We all know about the food bloggers, the recipe bloggers who are upset about it, as well as some travel bloggers. So let's see here. What can we point out? This is something I think we should point out right now because it's going to be very relevant just when we get, to the lower part of this particular email. As long as there are financial incentives to create low quality AI content, this space will always have bad actors. So keep that sentence in the back of your mind as we go through the rest of this email here. So they've said that they want to block and terminate sites that are, quote, low quality AI content. But, that's not enough for them. For whatever reason, they're butthurt over this whole AI content thing. So they want to, let's see here, they need to take it a step further. So Mediavine is basically, they've done this before and now they're like really digging in, right? Declaring themselves the hall monitors of the internet. They want to basically blacklist sites that they've determined are using AI. Nobody gets a chance, to defend themselves against this accusation. It's just happening. So they're branding these sites as made for advertising is what they're calling them. Back in the day, we used to have MFA sites all the time with just AdSense, so it's not a new term. But basically, they don't want people who they kick off of Mediavine to be able to go anywhere else and get monetized. That's a problem. Who told Mediavine to take up, this cause? Why are they doing this? Did someone tell them to, or did they just have this self-righteousness thing going on where they've decided to do this? At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter why they're doing it or if anyone told them or not. The fact of the matter is, I think it's wrong, but, that's irrelevant. But this is hurting people. It's hurting people who, are getting caught up in this who didn't do anything wrong. It's also hurting people who are using AI. Yes, Mediavine can take this stance, but they have no right to block those sites from getting monetized other places. So they went on to tell you who they're partnering with. What's very interesting to me and what you want to pay attention to is this Deep Sea company. I actually uncovered this company in Mediavine's association a few months back. I've actually been doing a deep dive on them, the tool that they've built that Mediavine uses, finding out literally everything I can about it because someone who is much smarter than me should be able to create a tool based on the same inputs to kind of help people basically get around, what they're doing. I haven't really shared all my research yet because I'm not done finding out everything I can find out. But that is the company that is behind scanning everyone's sites on Mediavine looking for AI stuff. I can tell you right now some of the stuff I alluded to in my last video about this topic, which is, they're looking for things that sites have in common that they've determined are, quote, low quality, using popular themes like generate press, things like that. Those are the kind of things that get you scored low in their tool, which sets you up, for this type of destruction by Mediavine. And we'll get into that in another video once I'm done doing my research, but that is something that if you want to research it on your own, definitely do that. And you'll see exactly what I am talking about. So one thing though to note is they say they're no longer relying just on DeepSeek. Now that is good because we all know that using AI to detect AI is just a fool's errand, right? And honestly, I don't know why they're still using DeepSeek at all or using any AI to do this. But for whatever reason, they've chosen to use AI to go after AI. They're also, I now have a dedicated team of, an entire team of 6 people, looking into this. I'm sure that's plenty of people, right, to deal with this. Basically, they actually confirmed it was more than 500 websites in a single day. So that is actually the first confirmation I've seen of a number. So obviously not an exact number, and as of today, the JSON file has still not been updated to reflect sites that actually have been removed. So I don't know how quickly, if ever, we're going to get an exact number, but it is more than 500. Now here's where things get really shitty. They have submitted all of these more than 500 sites to DeepSeek because DeepSeek is who's hosting this master list that Mediavine is creating along with them, in their attempt to make sure people can't get monetized anywhere. I think this is probably going to lead to some lawsuits down the road. It's like such a slippery slope, right? Especially if you've not used AI and you've done nothing wrong. I personally, I have actually written content directly into like Originality AI's checker, and it's come back as 100% AI. So there are so many problems with just branding a site as low quality AI without giving someone a chance to prove that it's not. So the important thing in this particular email from this is if you have been removed from Mediavine Journey, you are already on this list. That means that the domain name you are using, it's burned. Like, it is 100% burned, especially if they get any traction with this list with other, ad networks and things like that. So you need to get rid of it. I would recommend that you get a whole new domain name and you 301 everything to the new domain name. Because, like I said, you don't know what's going to happen in terms of them actually being able to prevent you from getting monetized. So get a new domain name. That's what I would do if I was you. Now, at some point in the future, they may get wise to this and look for 301s, but that's not something to really worry about right now. What I would do right now, get a new domain name. Honestly, I wouldn't, seeing how they're acting, I would not advise anyone to monetize with Mediavine right now, because you never know how aggressive they're going to get, and you also don't know if you're going to end up being collateral damage here. And then never mind the fact that what they're doing is really shitty, so they don't deserve to make money off of people, until they can start acting better, right? So that's just like my opinion on if I would monetize with them or not. But anyways, back to what we're talking about here is your domain name is burned. So you need to start thinking about that right now. You need to find a new domain name, work on getting all of your content moved over, because you never know, right? You're definitely not going to be able to resubmit the same domain name with Mediavine. And I know that they say that in 60 days, you can resubmit. I wouldn't bother. Honestly, I would get a new domain name, start fresh right now, and start with these best practices so that you don't get caught up in this DeepSeek, AI algorithm tool that they've made to look for AI. Don't use GeneratePress, don't use Cadence, don't use Astra. Find some random ass theme that doesn't have a lot of people using it. Go with that. Let's see what else here. Oh, another super important thing in this email. The form that they have made for people to submit sites that they think are using too much AI. I suspect all of those like catty food bloggers in that group that I got kicked out of on Facebook are just like spending their entire day right now submitting sites because they're so butthurt about other recipe sites making more money than them. It's obviously going to be abused because why wouldn't it be? That goes back to that quote that told you to remember. As long as there is an opportunity for someone to abuse something, they are going to, and this is going to be abused. Of course, it would also be a shame if people just started, submitting a lot of shit to this form, right? To kind of like give them a backlog of things to sort through. So I'm going to share this form with you guys. I'll put the link down in the description below. I've also made a copy of the form in the Wayback Machine, because I suspect at some point they're going to remove it, right? And put it up in a new URL, but I want you to still be able to see what was on it. So we'll look at the form in just a minute here. But like I said, I'm going to put the link down in the description below. So at the end of this email, it's not really anything important. The main takeaways are this form where people can, tattletale on anybody they want removed from the SERPs. It's like basically a new type of negative SEO, as well as the fact that you're on this blacklist. You're already on this blacklist, so you need to change your domain name. Now let's take a look at this form. I've already opened it, so let me switch over to that tab. Okay, so this is a form. It's a Google form right now. Like I said, I suspect some point in the near future here, it's no longer going to exist at the URL, which I've put down in the description below. But I do want you to have a chance to see what it looks like. And if it's not up by the time you're watching this video, make sure you click on the Wayback Machine link that I have included, because like I said, I did save the form in the Wayback Machine so that we can refer to it, whenever we want. It is just them looking for people to, tell on people that they think have used too much AI. One thing I find interesting about all of this, actually as a side note, is they never specify if it's just content or if it's just images or if it's both they're looking for. So that's just something to keep in mind as you're creating your site and things like that is, they may only be looking for images. They may only be looking for content. They may be looking for both. So just keep that in mind. So they want the name of the site, the domain, right? 3 to 5 URLs of posts where you suspect that AI is being used. I just love that Mediavine has decided that random bloggers are AI experts, right? It's hysterical to me and just completely absurd. Okay, let's look at the rest of the form here. Okay, so after you, select your 3 to 5 URLs where you want to show them, you have to tell them why you think that this site is using AI. I would love to read the reasons, right, that come in for this, because before I got kicked out of that food bloggers group, one of the sites that they were proudly talking about submitting to Mediavine and Pinterest, it had made a typo in one of the category names on the site. That was their entire reasoning, a typo. I actually wish I had written down all of the sites that they were sharing and the reasons why that they were basically sharing those with Mediavine, because I would just really love to know if that site that had the horrible crime of a typo actually got demonetized on Mediavine. Let's see. And they want to know if you're a Mediavine publisher. I don't know why that's relevant to them. One person who had sent me an email wonders if Mediavine is going to take this like nuclear, right? And gonna start taking submissions about sites that aren't even on the Mediavine network, right? And honestly, as scary and honestly stupid as that sounds, they're probably spot on with that assumption because, like I said, they have, anointed themselves as the internet's hall monitors. And they're building this blacklist. Eventually, they're going to run out of sites on their own network to put on this blacklist. So what are they going to do? They're going to start wanting people to basically send them any kind of random site. So I suspect if they are not already doing it, they will start taking submissions for sites that are not on Mediavine. Okay, so another thing I want to talk about today is the people who have been sending emails to Mediavine asking for more information. They have finally started getting replies from Mediavine. Someone forwarded me one that they got a few hours ago. Basically, this person felt like their sites, didn't really meet the criteria, for being full AI, and they had suspected that the reason that their sites had gotten booted was because they use a lot of listicles, right? And why wouldn't you? I mean, users love listicles. So what came back to this person was that yes, basically it was the listicle content. In their review, Mediavine had determined that the site was a low value to the advertisers. This is funny because I wonder how many sites are on Mediavine proper right now that have tons of listicles. And what about like that Mediavine, was it Mediavine Premier, that, that really high traffic level? I suspect some of those also have listicles. It will be interesting to see if the rules are going to be applied evenly across all of their levels. I suspect not. Let's see here. So they want original and informative content that, this is my favorite part, cannot be easily found by searching other areas of the web. Have they even used the internet, right? I mean, not only is there really like an original thought on the internet, but as soon as you put something out there that's original, like 10 scraper sites copy it by the end of the day. So that's pretty funny to me. So yeah, make sure you're putting out content nobody else has. Let's see, what else? So you can't have like your main purpose be linking to other sites with little, original content provided. Let's see, listicles, like I said. And like I'm thinking like, so what does that leave? What does that leave you? Maybe the people who have the sites where they're just like reviewing all the products at Costco or reviewing all the products at Trader Joe's, they're like, all that can be left here, right? I don't know. And then they reminded this person that in 60 days they could resubmit if they take corrective action. I mean, honestly, like I said, I think if, like, I haven't had a site on Mediavine in years, but if I was on Mediavine, like, I would be looking to get away from it ASAP, because this is crazy, right? It's just crazy. You can see on Twitter also, like if you just search for Mediavine, you can see what people are talking about, what's going on with all of this. And I see that an hour ago, there's other people who are talking about getting replies back from Mediavine. I haven't seen anyone get a positive reply yet. It seems to basically just be kind of like this email that they sent out, to all their publishers. They're just like digging in, right? This is the hill they want to die on. And I don't know, they just might, right? Because with AI and search and everything, people are getting fewer and fewer clicks to their sites. Lots of people are relying on Pinterest for traffic and things like that. Basically, the world for content sites, niche sites, and blogs has changed so much in recent years and is only continuing to change. And Mediavine is like, planting their flag firmly in the past. So it's going to be interesting to see, if they survive this, quite honestly. So just my thoughts on that. I also wanted to point out something that I learned today. Like I said, I haven't had a site on Mediavine in years, so this is something that I didn't know, and I can't confirm, like, with any documentation on their site if this is true. But someone on Twitter told me that there is a minimum payout of $100 on Journey. And his site, which was, he said didn't, fit the criteria for being booted, was just $2.12 shy of payout when they booted him, which means they're keeping the money. That's right. They are keeping the money because he didn't hit the minimum payout, which didn't happen because they booted him for a crime that he didn't have the chance to defend himself against. If I was on Mediavine right now, I would be very worried about this, right? Because I wonder, like, how many sites that were kicked off, in this more than 500 sites, how many of them are in this same situation and did not get paid because of it? It's terrifying, quite honestly. Amazon used to do this back in the day with their affiliate program. They actually did it to me back in 2014. My wife and I actually sued them in court here in Nevada, and we won. So I can't wait to see if someone sues Mediavine over this. And with Amazon, it said in their terms of service that they could take your money and all kinds of bullshit like that, but it doesn't matter what these companies put in their terms of service because it's still not legal, Like, Mediavine could have put in there that they were going to take your firstborn if you committed any, crimes against their terms of service. It doesn't mean they can legally take your firstborn, right? And so the same kind of thing applies with this thing with them keeping people's money. So I actually hope somebody takes them to court over this. When my wife and I sued Amazon, we did it in small claims court. So, we didn't have to have a lawyer or anything like that. It only cost us our time and the court filing fees. And quite honestly, once we won against Amazon, Amazon had to pay our court costs, so we ended up getting all that money back. It did take about 6 months to go through the courts, though. But like I said, I mean, Mediavine, I think, is setting themselves up to get sued because I think the situation is very similar to what was going on with Amazon at the time, which they no longer, take people's money because we sued them and won, and we set that precedent. So I'm excited to see if someone else sets the precedent here, with Mediavine. But yeah, I mean, it's super shady, right? And like I said, I do wonder how many other sites are in the same situation as this particular person. And here's what's really interesting, because here's the next question, and it is a very scary question for people who are currently on Mediavine, which is, I mean, we all know the state of the industry, right? HCU hit, sites lost all their traffic, which means their ad earnings went down, which means Mediavine's earnings went down, right? Because if the sites were not able to earn enough money on ads, then obviously Mediavine's cut is smaller. If the pie is smaller, then the cut of the pie is smaller. So I wonder how many more people are going to get on Mediavine and get kicked off right before they hit that payout amount, and then what? So like I said, if I was on Mediavine, I would be very worried right now. Honestly, I would, like I said, I would remove any sites I had from Mediavine to other ad platforms. And I say that even if that means you have to go just to AdSense or just to Ezoic because your traffic levels are low right now. Because, of course, in the past, I've been in this industry for quite a long time, and Google used to do the same thing with AdSense when made for AdSense sites back in the day would get, tens of thousands of dollars in their accounts. They would try to keep the money. They ended up getting sued as well. That's why they no longer do that. So far, Ezoic hasn't tried to take anyone's money that I've heard of. So yeah, while your RPM may be lower with Ezoic and your ads, are going to look a little worse, at least in my experience, and your site will run a little slower with them, again, in my experience, at least you're getting paid, right? And you get paid more, it's a quicker payout than it was with Mediavine. So something for you to think about if you are monetizing with Mediavine, or if you are considering, trying to get monetized by Mediavine, because what happens next? Where do they go from here, right? And just like I said, just to circle back to what we were talking about earlier, if you are one of the people who got booted out, you're on that blacklist now, that means that your domain is burned. Especially if they end up, getting other networks to basically work off of this blacklist that they're building. Get yourself a new domain right now. Move all of the content to the new domain, 301 it. Honestly, you don't have to 301 everything either, right? Basically, I would 301 anything that has great backlinks, and anything that's getting meaningful traffic. Anything that's not getting meaningful traffic, don't worry about 301ing that. I have 301 websites, for years now. I've done it so many times, I don't even know how many times I've done it. So you don't have to 301 every page. And if it's something that you've never done before and you're stuck, just reach out to me and I will try to help you if I can. But yeah, like I said, your domain name is burned. Definitely change that. When you change it, make changes to your site so that it doesn't look like the typical, AI site. Make it look different. Maybe even do something like use ChatGPT or another AI to spin up some type of free tool so that you can present your site like as a tool site on the front, and then have all of your content and for the blog, things like that. And again, if I was on Mediavine right now, I would be worried and I would be looking for another way to monetize my site. So that's all I have today in terms of updates. If I get any other information on this, I will let you guys know. I'm also still keeping an eye on that JSON file to basically as soon as all of those sites are removed from it, so I can get a better count of just how many sites it was. All they've said is more than 500. Does that mean like 520 or does that mean like 700, right? So as soon as I get kind of a rough estimate of that, I will probably update that in my newsletter first, unless there's like enough information to do a full video. So you can find the link for my newsletter down in the description below as well. And if there's anything I can help you with, feel free to leave a comment below or send me an email.